Good afternoon. We've had an exciting day 28 for the impeachment trial with the defense beginning to present witnesses for Article 2 of the impeachment complaint, which of course is what many people call really the meat of the impeachment case. So joining us to go over what has been said in this afternoon's trial is Rappler Editor-at-Large Marites Vitug. Good evening na. So, Mama Ritas, you said there are many questions that were raised this afternoon, especially with the testimony of Vicente, si Mr. Vicente, who apparently is the second cousin of Chief Justice Corona.
Yes, it's not, I don't know, according to Senator Recto, it's quite usual in Batangas, in the province, for people not to have titles in their names, not to register their property. So I don't know if this is the same reason that Mr. Vicente did not register the property in his name. He said he trusts the Coronas. So this is a big question that's still up in the air. But if we look back at the pronouncements of Chief Justice Renato Corona, he has not been exactly factual. If we do a fact-checking of his statements in the past month since the impeachment, we could refute. There are some statements which are not factually based. So that's why there's a credibility problem here. But again, we still reserve our verdict or our judgment when we see all the details. And he's coming back. I think he's coming back, isn't he? Or he's no longer coming back to the witness stand.
He has never taken the stand so
Yeah.
far.
So no, what I mean is Mr. Vicente.
Mr. Vicente.
He's no longer coming back. But as there are, first question is why did he not transfer the title of Marikina property to his name? Number two, as Attorney Justiniano said, why didn't he annotate the deed of sale so that it sort of protects him?
What does that mean, to annotate a deed of sale?
I think it's to bring it to the Register of Deeds and to
indicate.
Yeah, I don't know what the procedure is. And number three, when he established that the notary public was fake or not authorized or licensed to operate in Makati, what does that make of the deed of sale? So these are at least three questions that we have to think about.
Okay, of course, this Marikina property became an issue because it was declared in the 1992 Salon of the Chief Justice as a donation. With all the things that we learned this afternoon, how do you think we can interpret that? There were the years of the sale, the years of the declaration, and he claims it's no longer his, so he should not be required anymore to declare it in his Salon.
That's one discrepancy that has been uncovered today. As you said, number one, the property was donated, I think, to his wife or inherited by his wife, and it was sold in 1990. Yet it appeared in the 1992 SALN. That was the question of Senator Recto, which is a very valid question, and Justice Cuevas replied that it wasn't transferred because it wasn't. It was declared because it wasn't yet transferred to Mr. Vicente's name.
Until now.
So that means he should have declared it till today in his SAL, and if that's the reasoning, because
Or
until
not
today.
declare it in 1992. ganun
Correct.
ba?
Yes. So now we're seeing again another discrepancy in the SALN. So it's up. We have to find out and maybe also decide on this. If we also want to make our own judgments as citizens, then we have to think about this discrepancy.
How do you think the impeachment court can answer these questions? Like earlier, Senator Legarda was saying that, what should we do to determine the accuracy of the statements? And then nabanggit pa na apparently Mr. Vicente is related there's a connection to Ombudsman Morales. Like,
To the husband.
to the husband of Ombudsman Morales. How do you think they can get to the bottom of
No, I
this
think
issue?
it's up to them to decide whether Mr. Vicente is a credible witness. he was disarming, in fact, and in fact, he volunteered information
Yes.
that they haven't spoken to the Coronas in 20 years, and suddenly they called him to borrow the absolute deed of sale. So it's up to them to decide whether he's a credible witness, and also to look at the paper trail, at what has been presented to them. So it's really
It's their judgment.
yeah, it's really there up to them.
Okay, so before Mr. Vicente, we had a witness from the Supreme Court, the chief, the budget from the budget office of the Supreme Court. What do you make of her presentation? She presented the alpha lists of the Supreme Court and also detailing the salary, the basic salary, and the allowances of the Chief Justice.
I think it will be interesting tomorrow to listen to the cross-examination by the prosecution, because what they need to find out and what we need to know from as the viewers is how much were the allowances actually in comparison to the salaries, because what Ms. Bayuga gave us were annual sums total. In fact, she gave the salaries for each year, and then she gave a total,
Yes, for
including
the 10
allowances for the
years.
10 years of 21 million pesos. Because as Purple Romero has written,
Yes.
allowances cannot be used to buy homes or condos, because there are certain allowances that are prescribed only for
Official.
yes, functions and duties. So that will be very interesting tomorrow. I really look forward to another exciting day tomorrow.
So the accounting of the Chief Justice, like whether it's for personal or for the condos.
And also, if you compute for the 21 million given to him in 10 years, you divide that by 10, that's about 2 million a year. Salaries and allowance per year, it's not enough, I think, even if let's say it's the whole amount to buy the properties that we have seen so far. But still, the more basic question is, are allowances allowed to be used to buy properties?
Now, some of the people who were monitoring, of course, the trial were surprised that they didn't know that the allowances, for example, of justices would reach that amount. Like, why do you think? What is the breakdown for reaching 21 million?
Actually, if you look at the salaries, the basic salary is quite small. Like the largest so far was 600,000 plus a year. And in 2010, Chief Justice received allowances worth 500,000, almost close to his salary. According to the budget department, if your allowance exceeds 30,000 or 30% of your salary, that's taxable.
Okay.
So that's another issue that has to be looked into tomorrow. And you know, there was a year when Justice Corona was a member of the Electoral Tribunal. So they get big allowances.
There's a House and a
yes,
Senate
yeah, they get big allowances for that. But there's also this SAJ, special allowance for judges or justices, which was a tool to make up for the low basic salary. It was a law introduced in 2003, I think. So that's why this is it became as much as the salary, almost as much as the salary. So that has to be explained tomorrow, because some allowances are very specific, as she said, as Ms. Bayuga said. Rice, grocery,
With Christmas,
uniform is only 4,000 pesos a year. Clothing allowance, rather. There's miscellaneous, extraordinary miscellaneous. So we have to dissect all these allowances tomorrow.
Senator Pangilinan was actually questioning the presence of the Supreme Court employee, noting that there was a resolution from the court barring its employees. What do you think of that, and do you think the defense adequately answered that question?
Actually, if it were in normal time without the Feb 14 without the Feb 14 resolution of the Supreme Court, they should have been allowed to testify because they only will testify on administrative matters, not on the confidential deliberations. Yes, when the February 14 resolution was issued, then the Supreme Court's, in a surprising ruling, said that even administrative matters, like the process server was not allowed to testify, the date and stamp of the power of attorney, the date and stamp that the TRO was received, all these were disallowed. So that's February 14. So that's why I was surprised that Ms. Bayuga was allowed to come here to testify by the Supreme Court. You know, I'd love for all the Supreme Court employees of PNAD to testify here, but it should be even.
Okay.
It should be even for both sides.
So in the coming days, we expect the defense to continue presenting witnesses and evidence. With what was raised today and what we've learned from the time the prosecution was presenting, what are the key issues that must be addressed?
Yeah. It's really the Chief Justice Corona really afford all the properties and the bank deposits, considering his salaries and allowances, and considering that Mrs. Corona only had a regular job in government or for a long time, starting 2007 until 2010 when she was with John Hay. So we really have to look at the capability of the Chief Justice and his wife to own all these properties, at the same time have huge bank deposits.
And of course, there was that debate because they say that Mrs. Corona was unemployed, but this whole issue of Basa Guidote again being resurrected. The defense actually says it's irrelevant. It's a personal family issue, and there's a separate cases regarding that. How do you think it is relevant, if at all?
I think it is relevant because the defense counsels themselves presented the check paid to Basa Guidote in the amount of, I think, 34.7 million in 2001 when Manila City Hall bought their property. They were the ones who presented the check and it was marked as evidence. So I think it's relevant. They were the ones who introduced it all. And when Chief Justice withdrew 32.6 million pesos in one day on December 12, 2011, the day he was impeached, the defense said the money belonged to Basa Guidote. So they were the ones who brought Basa Guidote into the picture. So it's really relevant. It's something exciting also that we have to, that I look forward to see what the explanation will be.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Marites. Very exciting days indeed. We look forward tomorrow. It's the third day of the defense to present witnesses and evidence, and we will see what other surprises and excitement are in store for us. I'm Ai Makaraig. Thank you for joining us in our live stream on Rappler.com.
Malayong-malayo ho yun. Yung pong pagka-contempt ho sa akin, wala hong kinalaman doon sa ginawa kay Congressman Chanco at ang pangangailangan na ipagtanggol ang karapatan ni Chief Justice na maglabas ng kanyang mga testigo. Hindi po natin pwedeng payagan yun. Isipin nyo, kung yung mga ibang testigo natin later on, takot-takutin rin ng ganun. Mahirap ho, di ba? At nakikita naman natin, tinutuluyan si Congressman Chanco. Maghanda daw siya at baka daw umpisaan ng expulsion proceeding. So, ewan natin kung anong gagawin ng impeachment court, pero ang posisyon po natin dyan, kahit na ikaw ay miyembro ng Kongreso, kahit na ikaw ay private prosecutor o anuman, pag ikaw ay humarap sa impeachment court o ikaw ay naglabas ng reklamo dito sa impeachment case, dapat ang pagtrato sa inyo kapareho lang ng pagtrato sa depensa. Kung ano po ang treatment sa amin, ang inaasahan po namin, ganun din po ang treatment sa kabila. Yun ho ang, I think, kahit anong korte ho puntahan nyo sa buong mundo, sa buong daigdig, ganun po ang palakad. Equal treatment po yan. Yan ang inaasahan namin. So kahit na ba ito'y sabihin na natin, majority floor leader, etc. Kung talagang may ginawa itong paglabag sa batas, siguro naman hindi na ito tatalikuran ng ating impeachment court. Sana naman.
Sir, J. Dones of Radyo Inquirer. Sir, kanina may observation si Senator Kiko Pangilinan. Parang naging selective daw yung Supreme Court sa pag-entertain ng mga witnesses para na manggagaling sa Supreme Court. Reaction po ng defense dito. At kung meron pa po kayong mga nakapilang mga witnesses from Supreme Court.
I want to clarify yung February 13 resolution works both ways. Pareho po kaming naipit dyan. Marami po sana kaming mga dokumento, testigo na ngayon hindi na namin pwedeng ilabas. Ngayon, yung mga nilabas namin ngayon, it's very clear that these matters, yung allowances ni Chief Justice, were not covered by the resolutions which pertain to the pending cases that were raised in the complaint. Hindi naman ni-raise dito yung mga alpha list na yan at saka yung mga allowances ni Chief Justice. Ang naka-raise sa complaint, FASAP, Sixth League of... Yun ang mga... at saka yung mga judicial deliberative processes. So, kahit na yung mga process server doon, yung mga clerk of court, pag doon pumasok at yung mga dokumento o impormasyon hinihingi ay kasama pa doon sa active aspects ng case, hindi maaring ilabas dito. Yun hong mga resolusyon na nailabas na, maaari yun. Yung hong mga bagay na hindi sakop ng mga kaso yun, wala naman prohibition po ron. Si Rico may dadagdag.
Siguro gusto ko lang hong dagdagan yung sinabi ng aming kasama dito. Sapagkat narinig ho namin kanina na yung prosecution, na sinasabi ho nila na bakit ganon? Bakit pag sa depensa po pwede, pag sa prosecution mahirap? Hindi po yan totoo. Sapagkat records ng Senate Impeachment Court, makikita nyo po na kahit ang prosecution ay nagpalabas ng request for subpoena kay Mrs. Bayuga. At ito pong request for subpoena na to, ito ng Senate Impeachment Court sa kanila. At kung malalaman nyo po, 4 na araw po na paulit-ulit pong pumupunta si Mrs. Araceli Bayuga dito sa Senate para pong naghihintay kung kailan ho siya ipipresenta ng prosecution. Ngunit hindi po nila ginawa. Ngayon naman po sa pagkakataon na ito, kami naman po ang nagbigay ng request for subpoena. Ito naman po ay iginawad po sa amin yung subpoena. At ito po, dahil po dito, dumating po ngayong araw na to si Mrs. Araceli Bayuga, no? So wag ho natin sana tayo magpapalito dito sa mga sinasabi ho ng ilan ho, no? Sapagkat kung ano po ang ginamit na treatment sa prosecution as far as yung pagsubpoena po kay sa depensa ng Senate Impeachment Court. So hindi po tama ng malaking kasinungalingan po kung sasabihin nila na bakit sa amin po pwede, sa prosecution hindi. Tinawag po nila yan. Tanungin niyo sa kanila bakit hindi niyo ginamit na testigo. Maaari ho siguro yung nakita nilang mga dokumento magpapatunay na yung mga sinabi ho ng sarili rin ho nilang testigo ay mali at huwad.
Okay. Karagdagan lamang po, no? Maikling bahagi lamang that this is part of a deliberative process. Ang pinagbabawal po ng desisyon ng February 14 is yung mga impormasyon na tatalakayin sa labas ng Korte Suprema na nag-involve ang deliberasyon ng isang kaso. Kaya po tayo may judicial privilege. At ito po ay sumasaklaw at sinasakop ang mga court process servers. At makikita nyo po dito merong isang order. Ang order ay kailangan ipatupad. At sino po magpapatupad dito? Ang mga kawani ng Supreme Court. Kaya po sakop yan ng judicial privilege. Yun naman pong kay Mrs. Bayuga, may kita po natin na ang tinutukoy lamang dito ay bonuses, allowances ng ating emoluments ng ating Chief Justice. At siguro naman mas mabuting malaman ng ating mga kababayan. Dahil po sa maraming pagkakataon ay laging sinasabi, pag may nakitang konting may nakitang pera na nakalagay sa bangko ni Chief Justice, lagi nilang tinutukoy na nakaw ito, na kung saan po ito galing. Siguro naman po ito legal na paraan, inilatag po kanina eh. Siguro naman po maganda itong makita na 20 million rin po pala ito sa nakaraang halos 10 taon. So hintayin pa po natin na mga susunod na araw, kami magpapatuloy na magpaliwanag. At isa pa, no, bago ko makalimutan, ito na lang po yung testimonya ni Mr. Vicente. 8 titulo po ito. 7, tapos may isa po, di po ba? Matatandaan nyo po nung simula ng impeachment, ang winagawiway po sa periodiko ay 45 ang titulo. Matapos po ang ilang linggo, tinanong po ang prosecution, sabi, ilan ba talaga ang titulo na kaya nyong iharap sa amin? Mga 20 plus po, kung tama po ang aking pag-alala, mga 24 daw po, mahigit kumulang. At ibawas nyo po ron ang 3 parking lot. At isa pa sa isang condominium, magigipong 20 na yan. At ibawas nyo po itong tinestify kanina, less 8, 12 na lang po yan. Ilan po ang sinasabi namin mulat sa pool? Ang sabi po namin dyan, 5 lang ang property. So, 12 na lang po pinag-uusapan natin ngayon. So, abangan po natin ang mga susunod na araw. Kung kaya namin patunay na 5 lang talaga ang pinagmamayari ng Chief Justice. Opo. Abangan na lang po natin yan. Mahirap po. Hindi po kami pwede magsalita. Tandaan nyo po, iba ang aming paraan sa depensa. Hindi po kami pwede maglatag ng ebidensya sa publiko. Pag tatanungin nyo po kami, tignan nyo po kami 3, kahit tanungin nyo po kami, hindi ka po magsasabi ng pangalan ng testigo. Gustuhin po man namin kung sino mauna, kung sino mahuli, humingi po kami ng paumanhin. Gaya po na sinabi ng aking kasama rito, si Attorney Roy, gusto namin itaas ang pamantayan dito sa impeachment court pagdating sa mga abogado sa paglilitis dito. Yun.
Sir, kanina habang salang yung third witness nyo, si Demetrio Vicente, may mga iba't ibang komento yung naririnig. Isa po dun sa komento ay posible daw po kaya na administrator ito ng ni Mrs. Corona dun sa mga property niya dahil doon sa isa
I think malinaw na malinaw. Hinamon nga tayo ni Mr. Vicente, punta daw tayo dun eh. Ganoon na lang siguro. Kung gusto nyo, bulagain nyo. Binigay naman yung address eh. Bakit hindi nyo gawa ng investigative report yan? Hindi na kailangan kami magpatunay doon. Nasa inyo na lahat ng impormasyon. I-verify nyo, puntahan nyo. I'm sure that he has been telling the truth. I think that yung behavior niya was very straightforward. Yung story niya is a common story. Ito, transaction ng yung mga distant relatives na hindi masyadong close, mataas talaga yung trust level dyan. Alam mo naman sa Pilipinas, ganyan po yung palakad natin. Pagkadugo, kahit papano, malakas ang tiwala. So, hindi ako nagtatakang hindi siya natatakot na hindi ilipat yung titulo. Wala siyang pangangamba. Kamag-anakan eh. Di po ba?
Okay.
Salamat po ha.
Isa lang sa puntong yon. Para lang mailatag namin, maganda yung paliwanag ng kasama namin, pero kailangan pong tandaan natin na sa salitang Pilipino, yung batak na po, alam mo yun, yung paliwanag, batak na eh. Alam niyo po yung sinasabi natin, pilit. Again, with all due respect sa ating mga kasama sa kabilang panig, alam niyo po meron naman punto na kailangan tumigil na tayo at tanggapin kung meron naman pong katotohanan. Yun lang naman po. Pag kami naman pag sa tingin namin hindi namin kailangan magsalita, hindi na po kami nagsasalita Yun lang po, bigyan lang natin ng konting respeto ang testigo. Wag na natin pilitin pa kung halatang-halata naman at napakaliwanag ang kanyang testimonya. Opo.
Magandang gabi ulit.